Sabrina Getler, it's good to have you.
Good to be here.
Thanks for coming.
You betcha.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. You look
Good.
great.
Yeah, you too. You
Staying
got some,
busy.
yeah, you got some muscles going on. You working out more?
We're trying.
Good, good,
It's an incremental improvement, I think.
good.
Have you ever heard of James Clear? He wrote a book called Atomic Habits. Are you familiar with that?
I have not.
I don't want to do a dissertation on his material, but he basically talks about taking incremental steps. So instead of looking at the end goal, it's a sum of those little 1% increments, those little 1% increases that you can do every day. And so for me, it's just been about a discipline and probably a mindset on where I want to go with my health, if that makes sense. And so
Good.
thanks for noticing.
Yeah,
Feels better,
good.
you know. One of the neat things that James Clear talks about, and but he talks about two things. And let me look at my notes. He talks about the strategic effect of these 1% increases over time. He talked about eating a meal. So if I go home tonight and I could eat a hamburger or a salad. And at the end of the day or at the next morning, you don't see much of a difference if you eat the hamburger or the salad, right? You're not going to gain a bunch of weight or lose a bunch of weight.
Mhm.
But it's that daily commitment, chipping away at the ice sculpture, that over the long haul, it's the culmination, right? Or the sum of those
Mhm.
little actions.
Yeah, because you probably don't see a difference in the mirror day to day, but I haven't seen you in what, 3, 4 months?
Probably been that
Less
long,
than,
maybe
yeah,
longer. So thank you.
yeah.
I do appreciate it.
Doing good.
It's been an effort. But the other neat thing that he talks about, and I like reading my notes, is a tactical effect of it.
Hmm.
And so he said that our habits really create 70 to 90% of what we do throughout the course of a day. And we talked about it a second ago. Like, what's the effect of reaching in your pocket and taking out your cell phone? Well, one would think that as a habit, that doesn't do too much to the person, right? But it's what we do subsequently after we grab that phone. Are we checking our email? Are we texting somebody? Are we making calls? And those things are probably not things that push us towards moving the boat. When I say moving the boat, our day has to, our work lives, our personal lives, it has to be committed to moving the boat forward, right? Are we
Adding value
helping
to your life.
and adding value? So I think James Clear and Atomic Habits was something that was important. But you stay fit too.
Yeah, work out
Are
five,
you are you a
five,
morning
6 days a
person
week.
or a
Yeah, especially when I'm in Florida for the winter months. So I'll wake up and go watch sunrise, go to the gym, and get my
mm,
workday started. So that's a really good habit to be in and starts the day out. My day's better and longer and seems to be more successful when I get myself up early. So,
so there are times where I have to do it in the evening,
yeah.
and I've learned that I'm not a night person. I need to get
Mhm.
the exercise in, like you said, to kind of set the tone of the rest of the day.
Mhm.
Also, I think once the day starts, it's easy to skip over it because things happen. Like
Mhm.
the day can become reactive,
Yeah. Or you're just tired at the end of the day. So it's hard to get started
um,
and get the energy for a
and
workout.
that's
But
probably a big part of it.
yeah.
How did we meet again? Because it goes back some years now. Probably, I think it was Allison, was it not?
Yeah. 2020, the COVID year when we had in person or not in person, web-based Zoom meetings. And so I think she met me on a Facebook group. I had posted an ad, and she reached out and enjoyed it and invited me to join the coffee talk.
Yeah, that was kind of neat.
Yeah,
It was inspirational during COVID.
yeah,
She was diligent and committed, and it was something you could count on in your week. It was Friday mornings. What was it? Friday mornings?
yeah. I think
Yeah, it was
so.
Friday mornings, and it was the same group of people, right? And let me rephrase it. It wasn't the same group of people. I think the group changed as the world changed a little bit,
A
and it
little
probably
bit.
changed a little bit with Allison's career change too. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of the core people that stuck around, but there were a lot of new people and in and out every week.
Yeah, because Allison was in the residential space, then she moved into the commercial space, and so you both work in those areas, so it just made sense that the core was the same. But yeah, we're
Mhm.
going back about 4 years now, huh?
Yeah, it's crazy to think how fast time has gone.
I remember during COVID. When I think of COVID, I think of wintertime for some reason. I know it lasted a lot longer than that, but I always remember you being on the beach or having the backdrop of palm trees behind you while the rest of us are freezing. And I can't remember,
Yeah.
what were you working out there? What were you doing out there?
Yep, I was out. Well, like I said, I work in Florida, or I live in Florida in the off season or in the winter months. So I
Okay.
was out for spring training. I worked part time for the Astros at the time. That was
I forgot about that.
my fun job. So did that. We were in the middle of spring training when everything got shut down. So I just stayed out there for a couple months afterwards. And
Did you like that, or do you like that? Are you still doing it?
I loved it. No, I did it for about 8 years,
Okay.
and
It was just time?
it was time, and I was kind of forced to move on. So I worked at both in Houston and in spring training in Florida.
Okay.
With the whole 21 season, and then at the end of that season, about 3-4 weeks before the end of the season, before playoffs, they mandated the COVID shot. So had an exemption, they denied it and fired me. So that was the end of my 8 years with the
Was it
Astros.
so you had an exemption and they let you go? There's got to be a little bit more
No,
to that
I asked for a
story.
reason. They said they wouldn't give a detailed response. Take the shot by the 10th, or you're fired as of the 11th. So
Okay.
that's tried to fight it, didn't get anywhere, and unfortunately, that's how my time with them ended.
Have you maintained any relationships?
Yeah, one of my best friends actually got a job with them about 6 months after I left, and a lot of my
Okay.
good friends are still there. I mean, it was like a family. So
Well, I'm sure you still go to games, right? If you've got friends on the
Mhm.
roster, people that still work in the organization, right?
Yep. And I mean, baseball is like a family. So I think that's what was the hardest part, was just being kicked to the curb. You're part of the family, then all of a sudden you're not. So it's pretty harsh reality that happened, with 2 weeks left in the season. It was kind of crazy. But yeah, I've maintained a lot of those relationships and still go to the games. Still a baseball fan in general. So
Any playoff games? Just
I went to all of
those.
them, actually.
You did.
Yeah, I flew to Atlanta for the Braves. We went to the World Series that year. Then the following year, we of course won the World Series. So my best friend, I was supposed to go to the Philly game. She invited me as her plus one to go up to Philly on the team plane.
Okay.
But
And this is after
this
you
is
were
like a
fired.
year late. Yeah,
Okay.
a year later.
Well, that's cool. How was that? Was it fun being at the game?
Didn't go because had the paperwork in, and then last minute HR decided to red flag me in the system probably because I was fired or I was trying to fight it, and so I didn't get to go.
So after you had parted ways with the organization because you had friends, they were in the World Series or in a playoff game.
Mhm.
A friend invites you as a personal guest, and they still were able to prevent you from utilizing that ticket.
Yep. It's kind of like retaliation, but it's kind of hard to fight, big companies like that when you're just a part-time little
Hmm.
employee. So,
So what was that process like? How do they approach you with that?
with which part?
Well, I mean, how do they approach you? Is it all through email when they say, "Hey, Sabrina, we want you to do this or that," or "We're letting you go"? I mean, do they give you a deadline? How does that play out? I guess
Yeah, so
from
they
your
gave us
perspective.
they gave us what, 7 days, I think, to either put an exemption in or get the shot. And then it took 3 weeks for them to come back once I put the exemption in.
Okay.
And then within 24 hours, when I asked, is there anything else, accommodations or anything you do, I was willing to do temp checks, whatever needed to be done or testing. They came back and said, nope, no accommodations, no reasons will be given, just take it or you're done. And that was literally it. And then the thing later on, the year later, when I was invited to the game, they didn't tell me I was denied. My friend had to tell me. They went to her and told her that I couldn't go. So I was blacklisted.
So how long before the game? Was it the day before they told you,
It was
or
about
she
two,
told
two
you?
days before the game.
Couple
Yeah, we
days
were pretty
before.
stoked, all packed to go, ready
So
to go
are
on
you?
a team plane. And
So with all the friends and relationships you have, are you still an Astros fan?
a fan of the players that I've watched grow up and develop, yes. A fan of the organization, absolutely not. No, our morals and the way they've kind of taken the organization, our morals just don't align anymore. So it's, you know, baseball is baseball. But when you get into the politics of it all, I'm not really interested in being a part of that.
Well, you were part of Allison's group, right? Coffee Talk was the call. She started during COVID. It was a group it was a roundtable, an every Friday morning Zoom or Microsoft Teams call.
Mm-hmm.
And we would kind of go around the room and talk about what we did and how we could help each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, there are some mainstays in there, people that have really become part of my networking group. And I think people that will be sitting here with me, right? but I would argue that you've been probably one of the strongest partners um, that I've had in that group. I think, again, not because of your affiliation or your work with the Houston Astros, but because of what you do from a cost segregation perspective.
Yep. Yep. So the Astros was just my part-time fun job. I love to, I mean, baseball's always been my passion, but I knew that wasn't going to pay the bills. And yeah, so I've been in commercial real estate actually since I got out of college. Been in cost segregation since about 2019. So that's my full-time career in business. And that's why I was on Ellison's calls. So,
No, really, you've done a good job, and I've sent you a number of clients, and again, I think the group is naturally created for that reason, right? It was a good networking, a group of
yeah.
referral partners for each other, but I've always been able to. Well, one, a lot of our clients operate in the same space.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah. Our clients all overlap, so we can all work together. And
Yeah,
yeah.
but specifically me and you, I would argue. I think
Yeah.
because of what I do for a living and how you could step in and help those clients, it makes the referral process not only natural but easy, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. You know, when you refer a good partner like you, you're helping obviously the client,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my clients love you for that, and I like referring because I'm helping you as well too, right? I like working with people who I know and trust and helping them grow their businesses,
Mm-hmm.
and it also reflects well on me. You know, so if I've got a great, Megan and Ralph, we talked about them once or
Mm-hmm.
twice.
Yep.
Getting you an introduction to them and what you do for these people,
Mm-hmm.
Mike
Makes you
and
look good.
Mike, another
Yeah.
example. It really makes me look good too.
Yeah. Because you're
So
adding value to your business, really, and offering them help that they may not have otherwise known about. So,
yeah, and they love you to death, and you've done a nice job.
thanks.
You've added quite a bit of value, and you've solidified my relationships, which is right. It's
Yeah.
mutually beneficial.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you just had a call before, before this call that your client that you're doing insurance and, risk, was it risk insurance?
Yeah, builder's risk. Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect. He's doing a renovation. I can step in and help with the cost seg on the regular property plus the renovation. So it's the perfect client for both of us.
Well, I've been in insurance and securities business for well over a decade.
Hmm.
Um, and I work with business owners and individuals, all the same. But one of the things I've stumbled on, whether it be luck or Yogi Berra used to say, the harder I work, the luckier I get. But really, I stumbled into an industry that's taken off for me. And that's where it overlaps with you.
Hmm.
I work with a lot of commercial clients that are real estate investors. So a lot of those real estate investors are buying single family homes. They're uh, industrial spaces, retail spaces.
Hmm.
Sometimes they own the business, sometimes they don't. And so I think working with those clients, a lot of the time, they're coming into a building and they're tearing it down to some point and building it back up, whether it be for resale or owning it and renting it.
Hmm.
And that's where you've come in and helped them. That's where you've come in and helped them. And a lot of that stems off the builder's risk policies that we put in place for them.
Hmm. So like we were talking about earlier, once they get done building the property, then how do you transition into helping them long term once a building's constructed?
Well, I think there's no cookie cutter in my industry, probably much like yours, right?
Hmm.
Everything's customized, if you will. I think it depends if what their business does as an operation, right? So some of my commercial clients, they're just building owners, right? But some of them own the building and also operate a separate business, right? That operates inside that property. And so I would say the first layer of being a business consultant is making sure that their assets are protected the right way. We call it obviously asset protection. I guess not obviously, but we call it asset protection. It's making sure that the things that they've worked their lifetime over in building can't be taken away from you in a second. And I think that starts with having the right or adequate levels of liability insurance.
Hmm.
And that applies to business owners and individuals, but I think where you step in though, as they're going through that process, before they get to that process, as they're going through the builder's risk process, or the construction process, I should call it, I'm sorry, they need to understand what tax advantage programs exist for them that maybe their accountant isn't telling them about.
Hmm.
Did I verbalize that well? So,
Yeah.
so I guess to make it more simply, let me just pose as a question. You do cost segregation.
Yes.
And so I think most people might not even know what that is.
Yep. So I work with a company called CSSI. We do engineering-based cost segregation studies. Been around since 2003, done over 60,000 studies, one of the top in the country, if not the top provider. Work as a third party, so we work with a lot of CPAs and tax planners as their back office cost seg department.
Okay.
A lot of CPAs don't know about it, so I help educate them on how they can help their clients. But what we do is go in and analyze up to 100 building components that are really in an earlier depreciation life. So when a client will buy a building, it goes on 39-year schedule if it's commercial, 27 and a half if it's residential, including apartment buildings. So our studies will analyze those components into the proper class lives. So we find up to 20 to 30% of the property that can be moved in an earlier depreciation life, which creates tax benefits.
So let me bring you back just a little bit.
Okay.
No, it's good information.
Talk really fast
but
sometimes.
It's not that you're talking fast; it's that you're smart and you understand these things. And somebody like me doesn't necessarily know how to peel back all the layers of the onion for these clients.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just talking to Mark, right? He literally called while we were sitting before this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and he had just completed or is completing a build out. He bought a building,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I had a builder's risk policy in place for him.
Mm-hmm.
That builder's risk policy not only covers the structure, but it covers maybe materials that might be in that structure during the renovation process. And it protects all the interested parties, all the parties that have an interest in that property.
Mm-hmm.
It could protect the building owner. It could protect the architect. It could protect the lien holder. So that builder's risk policy not only insures that property, but components that are inside that property before they're installed or affixed to the building. Take it one step further, though. What builder's risk does, it helps reduce costs for the building owner. And so in this conversation with Mark, he is wrapping up that builder's risk policy. And so where do you step in and help Mark as he's taking a building that's need a lot of work, and now he's gutted the thing out. He's throwing out things from old tables to ceiling tiles to flooring.
Mm-hmm.
How do you exactly step in and help mitigate his or reduce his tax liability? That's what at its simplest form.
Yeah. So when he bought the property, he's doing the renovations. So that's going to go on the 39-year schedule on his depreciation schedule.
Okay, so he could basically take that building and depreciate over the course of 39 years.
Correct. Yes. Or I can work with him and we'll analyze the building components that are really in 5, 7, 15 years. So items like carpet, paint, cabins, windows, landscaping, down to the striping on the parking lot can be put in those earlier class lives. And anything that's found in that 5, 7, 15 can be taken as bonus depreciation. So which means the bulk of that depreciation can be taken today rather than over 39 years.
So which makes sense because the lifetime of carpet is rarely 39 years, right? So is there...
Well,
maybe explain it a little bit more for me.
For study purposes, I mean, most carpet's not going to last 39 years, maybe 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So that's a 5-year component.
So you can take the tax deduction of that piece,
mm-hmm.
shorten the length of that deduction from 39 years to 5.
Yeah, and because it's 5, they in 2017 the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act said anything found in 5, 7, and 15 years was eligible for 100% bonus depreciation. So instead of depreciating over 5 years, you're able to depreciate that in year 1 for 100% bonus. Now,
so it's not eliminating tax liability; it's just moving more of it forward to free up cash flow.
Yes,
essentially, right?
Yep. And the 100% bonus went from September 2017, if the property was purchased and in service, from September 2017 till January 1st, well, actually December 31st of 2022. 23 started 80% bonus, and this year's 60% bonus. But one thing that the House just passed, and it's waiting for Congress and Senate to approve, is the 100% bonus depreciation to be activated for 2023 retroactively, in 2024, possibly 25.
Is that how you got done what you, because we also, I think we sent Mike to you too.
Yeah.
But was that a hotel? I can't remember what you did for Mike, but that
Mike did five different apartment buildings.
Okay.
So for example, one of his apartments was about $4 million in cost basis. And instead of depreciating only $67,000, he was able to take about $800,000. So
in year one.
In year 1.
So what does that mean for cash flow for Mike?
So say he owed $1 million, or his NOI was $1 million.
What's NOI?
Net operating income. So after the expenses, he's going to have to pay taxes on that $1 million.
Okay.
Okay. So on straight line, he would have been able to take, what was it, 67,000 I said earlier on straight line.
Okay.
So 1 million minus 67,000, it's a pretty good chunk of money you still have to pay taxes on. With the cost segregation study, he was able to take $800,000 in depreciation expense. So 1 million minus 800,000 in an extra expense puts you at 200,000, right?
How did you find that extra $700,000?
So that's what was found in the 5, 7, and 15 year. Instead of taking a little bit over 39 years, we were able to bulk that in the earlier life.
Gotcha.
So
just putting it in fifth gear, basically, right? The depreciation.
yeah, you're just accelerating the depreciation on it. And it's one of the, IRS tax codes. It's totally legal, and it's a tax strategy used. So he's paying on 200,000 instead of, over 900,000. So his tax bill is greatly decreased. So he can take that money and reinvest it, hire more employees, expand his business, invest it however he needs to instead of paying the IRS.
So at what point in time is it too late? So I'm talking to Mark, and I at one point in time heard you, or Megan, I think, had told me you had mentioned something about dumpster, something with dumpster, right? So at what point can a property investor that's like doing construction of a building, at what point have they missed certain opportunities? Can you walk us through that process maybe?
Yeah. So cost segregation is on a regular purchase, right? And so when people come in and do renovation, the building has to be in service to begin with.
What does that mean in service?
In service means rentable. It has to be able to be used.
Okay.
Because a partial asset disposition is when you're doing renovations and everything taken out of the property, put in the trash, it's considered trash for your cash. So the IRS allows you to write down some of those assets because they're disposed of. Okay. But it has to be able to be in service for the IRS to say there was use there. Otherwise, they're going to say, well, you're not able to write anything off because it was useless. Does that make sense? So we typically say the property has to be in service for a year, and then they do renovations. So we'll do a partial asset disposition study, take the benefit from everything that was put in the trash, and then cost seg the original building and cost seg all the new components going into the building.
That's incredible. Give me an example, will you?
Yes, and real quick, so the time limit, you have to take that partial asset disposition in the year the renovations are completed, otherwise it's lost. So it's a use it or lose it opportunity. A lot of people that do renovations don't know about that, or CPA doesn't know about it, and so they lose that extra cash for your trash. Renovation would be, let's see, I did in Chicago, north side of Chicago, 3 flat. Guy came in and completely renovated everything. He had it rented out for a little bit. So it was a different tax year. He bought it, say, 2021.
Okay.
Rented it out for several months. 2022, he did a major renovation. So everything, of course, that was taken out had that partial asset disposition. And then we cost segged everything going back into it along with the original components. So he had a pretty good result in this study.
You said study a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you call it a study? Explain to me the process. So if I'm going to renovate a building, at what point do I call you again? It's before I start tearing out ceiling tiles, right? So I got to get you involved pretty early.
Yeah, I mean, we recommend as soon as the client closes on the building. That's always a good time to talk to us. We talk to even commercial brokers if they're listing a property to kind of, give an idea of the client. We'll give an estimate. But once the client closes on it, then we can walk them through, when's the best time to do renovations? What kind of renovations are they doing? But we can also go back as far as 10 to 15 years. So we'll run an estimate, and if it makes sense and a good portion of the property has not been depreciated yet, then we can pull what hasn't been depreciated yet forward in that 5, 7, 15 year and take that extra depreciation expense today going forward. No need to amend past returns.
Wow. How many cases a year are you doing?
It's a good question. I don't know.
It probably changes a little bit every year.
Yeah, it has been growing every year. Probably a couple hundred.
Well, this is a stupid question, but is this just for investors, or let's say Phil just bought a home? Is he able to appreciate renovations that he does?
So, no. It's not for primary residences, but you can do rental property, short-term or long-term, and any kind of commercial property.
I thought you said, though, at one point in time, it's not for the flips. Don't you have to hold on to it for a year? Is that?
Well, we recommend holding it for about 3 years, because if you do a cost seg study and you sell it the next year, the IRS is going to make you pay recapture. They're going to say, hey, you took all this depreciation expense too soon. You didn't hold the property long enough for anything to depreciate in a decent amount of time. So they're going to make you pay a portion of that benefit back. So some savvy investors will do a cost seg study, take the benefit, invest it at a high rate of return. And then when they sell, they're okay paying recapture because it's almost like an interest-free loan from the government. They know how to invest that money, and they're okay paying it back. So we don't recommend that, but some people can do that.
Well, people like interest-free loans, don't they?
Yeah.
How do you get into something like this? I mean, did somebody knock on your door? Is it something you fall into?
I totally fell into it. Divine intervention. I was in the note business for a while, and then commercial lending. I was an underwriter and absolutely hated it because I can't sit still at a computer for 8-9 hours a day. So,
Okay.
Yeah, one of my connections asked if I ever heard about cost seg and had been in real estate, since college and several years, and said, sounds too good to be true, but tell me about it. So.
And you're essentially self-employed, though.
Yeah. Yep. 1099, self-employed.
I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I think sometimes the best paths happen on accident.
Yeah, I agree.
Call it luck, call
Yeah.
it being at the right time, the right spot at the right time. But sometimes the best stories happen that way.
Yeah. Law of attraction. I knew what I wanted in a career. I wanted to be able to work from home, travel, sell a product that wasn't really selling hard. I like to work with people and help people. So helping people save money. I always say the IRS is not our favorite charity. So if we can help give money back to those businesses to where they can donate to charities of choice, and we know where that money's going, they know where that money's going, or back into their business, then it is a lot of fun. And we help with CPAs, brokers, add value to their business, guys like you.
It's so funny you say that. There's another book, and I'm not here to talk about my personal reading library today. We already talked a little bit about Atomic Habits, which is a great book. But another book that I've tried to base my business on is called Integrity Sales. Have you ever read that book?
No, I have not.
So Integrity Sales,
I don't read a lot of books. I listen to podcasts, but I don't read a lot of books.
Look,
Audiobooks, yes.
Well, the great thing, and I'm coming across as a big reader, and I'd be lying if I said I was. But there are
you've listened to them at that.
But there are certain things that I pick up on, and there's some things that I find interesting to me. And when I was starting my business a decade or so ago, the book that found its way on my desk from my manager was called Integrity Selling. I historically don't like self-help books. I traditionally do not enjoy sales books at all. I had taken sales courses for years. I was with a couple big companies in the past, and all these different sales techniques and questioning models. And I think some of them have been effective. I found some of those strategies not very genuine. And essentially what Integrity Sales did, I think, was it helped me, for lack of better terminology, it helped me redefine what I already believed. And it was refreshing to hear somebody else say it, if that makes sense. So Integrity Sales is some basic rules on sales. And the few that I remember off the top of my head are that sales aren't something you do to somebody, but sales are something that you do for and with somebody. And to me, that changes the perspective that anybody that's engaging in any sales process, it's got to be something that's going to enhance the client's life in some way or their business. I think the other thing that I got from Integrity Sales is that sales are not something that you do to somebody. Is that the one I just said? I think it's something you do for and with them. But I think just as importantly, we'll have to probably edit that part out, Nick. But the other thing the other thing that I think is super important is that sales are something to be celebrated by all parties, right? And it's always placing a client's needs first. Now, there's a whole bunch more to that book, but I think when you had mentioned earlier that you weren't interested in hard sales, this industry seems to suit you.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Sure. I mean, I show them the numbers, the ROIs are astronomical. So it's not a hard sell. It's, do you want your money now or do you want to wait 39 years? So 100% of the time they want their money now, unless there's something that like they're going to sell their building, or they have partners that, aren't sure or have different tax, whatever the case may be. But most of the time the people are open to it and
Well,
like to save money.
there's always going to be battles to be had, right, in your line of work or mine, and there's always a sense of charging uphill, if you will. But I think I think a lot of what you said are the reasons why I initially said I love referring you, because I think you've got a product that I know is valuable to the client base that I work with, or a large portion of the client base that I work with. Um, I think you approach it with caution. At least my client said, right before you start making promises, you do the study, which is why I wanted you. That's kind of where I was going before. You want to do a study, understand the situation before you capture the information, get it down to whoever makes the decision or who makes the final, whatever they get to deduct, right? That's your business.
Yeah.
But I think that's why it's easy to refer you, right? But I think also it's important that you work well with people too, and you listen to what they want, if that makes sense too.
Absolutely.
Although I have been told, Sabrina, if you don't mind, I have been told that you've got no problem though letting people know exactly how things need to be done. And but that's a good thing. I think people want leadership. All people want leadership in their life, regardless of what level you're at. We're looking for somebody to learn from. We're looking for that level of leadership. Yeah. And so the clients have said that you've got no problem letting them know exactly what the process needs to look like and what they need to do next. Is that, would you say they're accurate in that?
Yeah, it's like, I know what needs to be done. Yeah. So let's step 1 through step 5 and let's get it done in the most efficient way as possible. I like to, not beat around the bush. Here's the numbers. Here's what you have to do. Here's the results. Here's what your CPA needs to do. I'm happy to talk to them and explain it, but try to be as straightforward as possible. Get to the meat and potatoes and kind of cut out any of the BS. I don't, I'm a pretty straightforward person. And if I see a way that could be easier based on past experience, and I'll recommend it, like whether they take it or not, I'm not going to make anybody do anything, but I'll suggest what I've learned from my past.
So what do you think about Mr. Toad there?
I think he's adorable. He's a perfect little coffee mug.
Yeah, he's pretty. Somebody that sat in this room with me, we did a filming once, sent me that mug of
it was Christmas present.
What's it called, Mr. Toad? And something tells me it was sent to me. It was a left-handed gift, if you will. I feel like somebody was poking fun at me. What do you think?
It was not. No, absolutely not. This person would never poke fun of anybody.
Well, if you want to know something kind of cool, very recently, and me and Nick were talking about this earlier. So on this health journey I've been on lately, right? So it's been quite a process for me. So 2 years ago, I just decided that I was going to get back into shape, right? Because I had wrestled in college and done football in college and done some other things. And I said, I'm going to get as strong as I can. So I got into the weightlifting and powerlifting, and I had a good time with that. So I was gaining weight quickly. Mm-hmm. And then, so starting this year, started a weight cut journey. And so me and Nick were just talking about that when he first came in, and I told him that I started boxing, thus the boxing gloves in the office, right? So the first day, and we're off subject a little bit, but I want you to hear this because you might get a kick out of making fun of me, which is where I'm going with this.
There's a reason for that. You got to explain that part.
There's a reason. We're going to get into that later. Yeah, I will bring this full circle. Okay. I promise. And I might do it just for our enjoyment to relive the experience a little bit. So a friend of mine said, "Hey, you should try boxing, as you're on this weight cut journey." And so I tried boxing. And the first couple of days were pretty rough. It was like I had 2 left feet. I forgot how to walk.
Did you get knocked out?
Let me keep going. So
is there a video of this?
So Chris, my trainer Chris, he's currently fights. He's about my age. He's been fighting for 10 years, and he's having high levels of success. He's like, "Phil, let me train you." So after I do my day, my morning workouts, I drive all the way to Cary, Illinois. So it's about an hour and 5-minute round trip, or one way. And we train in his garage. And the first day was pretty bad, and the second day was probably worse. And I continue to work with Chris. And so last week I came home with a bloodshot eye and kind of a little bit of a black eye. And so Chris had said, "Hey, Phil, you got to keep your hands up." So he's teaching me how to punch, and I'm not good at it. I'm not proclaiming to be a boxer. I'm just, middle-aged guy trying to recapture my youth a little bit, probably. So he's like, "Phil, you got to keep your hands up." And he'd been saying that to me for 2 or 3 weeks. And then so last week, Friday, he had told me 2 or 3 times, "Phil, keep your hands up." And so about halfway done with the workout, I throw a couple shots, and I just get blasted in the face. I mean, and it hurts a little bit, right? And he looks at me with zero feeling bad. He's like, "I told you to keep your hands up." And so I figured you might find that story interesting, being that you like making fun of me, and Nick likes making fun of me a little bit too.
You're just an easy target.
I am a little bit
fun to mess with.
Well, I am an easy target. So
exactly.
So for those that don't, actually nobody knows except for you, we had tried this before. This is our second time doing this. And I sent you the video, the edited video that Nick had sent me.
It was the first video too.
The first video we had ever done. And you said one thing to me. You said, "Phil, you look like Mr. Toad."
And this is where I insert the shot of Phil looking.
Yeah, you probably should do that. And what's even worse is I didn't know who Mr. Toad was, right? So you said that to me on the phone. I think it was in text, I think. So talk about picking up the phone, what drives behaviors. And so I'm on the phone, I'm looking, and I see this picture of Mr. Toad. I was a little bit insulted. Although I will say this, I went back to the video clip, and I'm like, I do look like Mr. Toad. That wasn't good.
It was the white shirt and the shrugged shoulders and just the cheesy little grin.
That made us change the chairs that we had. We went through a whole reset design for that.
For you guys, you missed this a little bit just now, but she kept digging. She's like, "No, it was the hunched up shoulders and cheesy grin." Did you? She's still.
You know what anybody who knows Phil knows exactly what I'm talking about.
So therein lies Mr. Toad, and I just want to tell you the story about me getting punched in the face, because it seems to be pretty regular in my life that people like teasing me.
Oh no!
I will say this though,
but you laugh about it, so it's just to our face anyway. It's all out of love. It's all in good fun.
I've encountered a lot, in this life so far, and there's been as many failures as successes. Probably far more.
Yeah. And
so I think it is okay to understand, what you failed at and try to improve on it.
Yeah.
That first filming, I think we said, like, this is probably going to suck.
Yeah. Oh, we knew it. Trust me, I made fun of myself as equal. Probably harsher than I made fun of you.
Which is fair, because
it was pretty bad.
Well, I think it will continue to evolve over time. I don't think anything is finished growing, right? If you will, but
only constant is change, right?
Yeah, the only constant in life is change.
Yeah.
But what I have been lucky enough, though, in the jabs that we take with each other, is what I do for a living has accidentally built relationships that might be lifelong.
Mm-hmm.
I said earlier, I do securities and insurance for a living, and I certainly do. But that encompasses a lot, right? And when you're starting out a business, a decade or so ago, you're picking up the phone and calling people.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept it pretty simple. And it goes back to maybe the integrity sales. I saw old friends from college, friends from high school, just people in my past, people I worked with, old bosses. And I'd always tell them to just sit with me for 5 or 10 minutes, whether it be a phone call or a Teams call or whatever the medium might be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to ask you to buy anything from me. And I've held that promise.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's important is the landscape has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people need to shift their thinking, which is why I find value in you and why I want to send you to my clients.
Mm-hmm.
We are conditioned today, make no mistake, to buy products.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to buy widgets. We're going to buy products. We're going to buy this. We're going to buy that. Very rarely do we look and say, who am I going to hire?
Mm-hmm.
So CSI, It's a big company,
CSSI.
huh?
CSSI.
CSSI. What that's
Yeah,
a,
right.
that's actually proof that I refer you and not CSSI.
Right.
That happened accidentally, but that's proof exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. And
People need to understand that they need to stop thinking about insurance or retirement planning or asset preservation or legacy planning or my builder's risk insurance. They
mhm,
need to stop thinking of, I need to buy this product. It doesn't matter where I buy it from. I got to find it cheap and effective, and that's it.
totally.
People need to start considering who they're hiring to be on their team.
Right.
And I think that makes a difference. And I think you
That's
do a good job
everything.
of that. Because as my industry changes, I've learned now as a financial advisor, we also work with insurance products because protecting your assets is probably the first step in building wealth.
Mhm,
Probably is, or building a successful company. But what people need to understand is when it comes to your insurance portion, there's really three elements of an insurance policy, and you can never have all three.
mhm,
You can have a great company, you have great protection or a great policy, and you could have great pricing.
mhm,
It's really tough to have all three. Because if a company that's going to stand up and pay claims like they promised when you need it, you're not going to be able to get that at a discount.
mhm,
We've all seen increases in our pricing, whether it be our builder's risk pricing, our commercial, our work comp pricing. We've all seen these increases come across.
mhm,
And so all the more reason that I think don't just go online and buy a product. I think it's important to have a consultant, somebody who understands how the insurance affects your long-term wealth accumulation, who understands your risk management element of your business or your
mhm,
property or whatnot.
mhm.
And so I think that luckily, like you falling into what you've fallen into, my phone rang one day. Let me rephrase that. My LinkedIn message, we're in a new world now, right? My LinkedIn button changed.
Mhm.
And that's where somebody said, hey, Phil, I think you'd be a good fit. I think you'd be a good fit in this industry. And I think it's been serendipitous for me too.
Mhm. Well, and like you said, nowadays everybody's so focused on money, 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 product, 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 sell, sell, sell. It's like I take a step back and it's like I don't want to be, hustling people. It's like I like people. I want to get to know people. I want to genuinely care about them and help them. And I think our society has lost touch with a lot of that in every aspect of relationships. So it's like when I meet a client, it's like I want to, have the best customer service, get back to them within 24 hours, usually 12 hours or less, and, available, cell phone, text, weekends, like just be there for them. And
100%.
I
We
think that's, we stand out because of that, because we do care and we're not just trying to make, money, money, money
Well, I think you
left and
stand
right.
out because of that.
Yeah.
I think you need to. It's okay to take ownership over the things that you do, and that's as I get older. We talked about I have experiences, and people make fun of me, and I've developed these relationships, whether it be through work or rekindled relationships. One thing I think I've learned is assume responsibility for the things I do well,
Hmm.
and be disciplined enough to try to work on the things that I don't.
Hmm.
And so I think you should give yourself a little bit more credit. I think those hats that you wear, I think that's something that you own and not CSSI. Fair?
I agree with that. Yep. Yep. Because, we're all different reps. We all approach things a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think so.
So,
And I really think you do a good job of it.
well, thank you.
But I think as we, whether we're just a small business owner or a potential real estate investor, I think it's important that we understand that when you Google, where am I going to buy my first home or how do I get involved with real estate investing, almost never will cost segregation be part of that Google search. Do you agree? Because I've been in the financial services business for a decade,
Hmm.
and it took me year 6 or 7 to even know what cost segregation was.
Yeah.
And even after you told me, I then had to Google it to figure to
Yeah.
really nail down exactly what you did for a living. And
Yeah.
I think that says a lot about the disconnect between some of the people that need your services and the people
Mhm.
that actually use it.
Right.
Remember
I mean, I
Howard?
was.
I referred you to my client Howard.
Hmm.
And so I try to send you my clients that I think could use you, right? Because referring your business partners should not be an accident.
Yeah.
If somebody called me up and said, hey, do you know anybody that does cost segregation? That's a layup. That person should be getting your phone call or getting your contact information.
Hmm.
I think it's my responsibility to understand what you bring as a service, and maybe I'm always looking out for those things.
Hmm.
So I referred you over to Howard, And this is a big thing. He does a lot of the industrial properties, right? A lot of builders risk with him on industrial buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And Howard said to me, he's like, of course I do cost segregation. So when you talk about somebody that knows what they're doing, of course they do cost segregation, and you're watching this video and you're not, that's the disconnect that nobody taught you about.
Yeah.
Fair?
I was in real estate for 10 years before I found this. I was in residential, mortgages, commercial, the note business, hotel financing. Like I was in all of that, and I never heard about cost segregation. And it blows my mind because I wish I would have found it right out of the gate and would have jumped into this sooner. But it's an incredible tool to use for tax strategies. And like I said, I thought it was too good to be true. I'm like, I've been through it all in real estate. I've heard the spiels. But I'm like, I'll hear it out. And he's like, I'll show you my, my tax papers. And this is what I, make. And this is how I'm helping people. It's estimates we do. And heard him out. He explained it. And then our home office has a training program. And then Paul has been my mentor, and he's been great in helping me. He's been doing cost seg for over 20 years. So it's a pretty incredible business to be in. And I mean, the amount of cost seg reps out there compared to the amount of real estate that's out there. I think there's over 12 million commercial buildings, and we as a top company have only done about 60,000 of them. That tells you how big the market is for this out there, and how much, I mean, some of my biggest pushback are from CPAs that just don't know cost segregation or understand it. So
I don't know why a CPA would give pushback on this. It's just
Because
it
they
doesn't
don't
even
understand
resonate with me.
you'd be surprised.
But tell me, why? What?
They CPAs can be great, but they can also, if they're not super familiar with a product, they tend to just push back on it because they don't know about it or it's extra work for them. So big part of my job is helping to educate them.
I guess that makes sense, because I mean, if you're forcing the CPA to do more work and they're not getting paid for it.
Right. And a lot of them, just file tax returns. So a lot of times I have clients come into me and say, hey, I heard about this. Do you know a CPA that, CPA has been working with me 20 years and never told me about this? So, there's a group that I work with that can help. But I mean, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. So I'll help CPAs if they're willing to hear about it. But a lot of them just file tax returns. And a lot of business owners have tax strategists or tax planners. And those are the people who know about cost segregation. And so that's the main field. So most people business owners will have a CPA and a tax planner, because if they just have a CPA, they're not really focused on the tax strategies to minimize their risk. They're just filing tax returns.
So one of the things that I found important, that I've learned right over the last decade or so, is that most people have different professionals that help them in certain areas, and none of the professionals know the other person's name, and none of them know what the other party is doing. So I think that one of the things that I've tried to pull together, I've tried to be a general consultant, but I need to make sure that the accountant knows what's happening. Me as a financial advisor, the insurance advisor, the estate planning attorney, the business attorney, the cost segregation specialist. I think surrounding myself with a good team, again, puts that consumer back in a position of control. And I think that when the consumer works or partners with somebody who doesn't really understand how those other professionals impact all the other areas of their personal financial portfolio, if you will, I think it puts ultimately the consumer in a compromised position. And so again, it goes back to the common theme here is I think it's important to hire the right people and not think of, who's got a product for me to buy. It's critical. But you said something earlier, Nick, and not that I want to, preach, if you will, but a very smart man once told me that, we don't follow our dreams, that our dreams follow us. And it was when I started this company, and Drew had said, huh? You did not say that. Nope. No, you did not say that, Nick. But you had said, I want to get into cost segregation. And rightfully so. Sabrina says she makes the understanding of what it does and the unknown potential of how it could help people, it draws people to cost segregation. It leads me too. But I think that whatever you commit to, the harder you work, right, your dreams follow you. Like I never had a dream of being a financial advisor and insurance agent. In fact, Tom Brady, in case you guys don't know who Tom Brady is, he's probably the greatest quarterback who's ever lived. That's going to be up for debate in the next 2 or 3 years. I fully understand that. But Tom Brady was doing an interview. I can't remember way back when, but he's like, He was pushed. He didn't get drafted in the first round or second round. He was drafted in the sixth round. And he said he looked at his family and said, what am I going to do? Sell insurance? I don't want to be an insurance salesman. And here I am living the life I've always wanted to live as an insurance salesman and financial advisor. And so I guess my only feedback to you would be is I think wherever you work the hardest, I think you'll find that doors open, and I think you'll find passion working hard. Because wherever you're busting your butt, ultimately we're helping people. And I think where you're helping people, I think you start realizing that your dream was to give back to society. It was to help people. It was to grow your business. It was to provide a legacy and build a business for your kids and make sure that there was something that you could leave behind. And not just as a monetary legacy for your family, but maybe as what are you doing for other people's families? We didn't talk about it today, and I don't want to talk about it now.
As the person you are.
Well, for Tom Brady to say that, he was right. Nobody dreams of saying, man, I want to go peddle auto insurance. I want to go sell builder's risk insurance. Nobody grows up wanting to do that. But I think once you realize that you're impacting generations of families, I've delivered a death check. I've written a life insurance policy. That person has died, and I've brought the spouse that check. And the emotion there, it's a horrible feeling, but a wonderful feeling. While you can never replace that person, you can look at a family and say, it's okay. I think of a child's world. Now, the years have changed the story, right? So it doesn't hold true. But when you think of a child's world, think of a child, their world is their family, their house, their neighborhood, and their school. That's it. That's the extent of a child's world. And like I said, I know it's a little different now with YouTube and social. I understand that at a young age, their world has already gotten bigger. But their real tangible world is just those things. If you remove mom or dad from that equation, in many instances, most households today are a two-income household. Very few are a one-income household. Well, now you've removed the child from his or her home. On top of losing mom or dad, now they're out of the home. They need to change schools. They're out of their neighborhood. Their entire world is gone in the blink of an eye. And so I don't think Tom Brady was right to diminish what I do for a living. But I would have too. I just think our dreams follow us. Whether you're in cost seg or insurance, it's just a matter of how hard you work. That's my opinion. Call it simple-minded or being on a soapbox, but that's truly what I believe because that's what a very smart man once said to me.
There you go.
So I think that's all I really got. Do want to end on that note, though. That was pretty deep there, wasn't it? It was probably too much. Any more funny stories to tell?
That's what you let people go off on.
And anything else funny that you want to talk about other than me getting punched in the face or me looking like Mr. Toad?
You never did tell a story, did you?
About what?
The white shirt. Yeah, I guess you did.
I kind of did. But where I did want to bring that full circle and I didn't do it, so let me do it right now. And maybe I'm going a different full circle than what you thought. But I forgot we were doing this today. I sincerely forgot. In fact, I at the last minute asked Nick, who's with Viz Image, our camera guy. You know that.
It was about 7:30.
About 7:30 in the morning, and so I'm wearing a t-shirt. I'm like, well, I need to run to the store, and so I ran into the store, picked up a couple of shirts to wear, and the first thing you said to me of the 3 or 4 shirts that I picked, you said, "Wear the white one with the collar so that you look like Mr. Toad." Do you remember saying that today?
Yeah,
something along those lines.
It would have made for a lot funnier moment, and that's why he's wearing the solid
and
black.
That's the black. That's the second wardrobe.
No blue tie.
All right, well, we're gonna cut this. We're gonna end this, Sabrina. We got to do this again, though. We got to dig a little bit deeper on some of your case studies. And thanks for coming.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Nick.